Hey, so welcome. Dr. Ashling Leilaeioun of UC Merced is a postdoctoral. She's an expert in the renewable energy industry. Her research is on projects such as demand management, just like we're talking about, and the Terawatt challenge in PV, and how positive feedback loops can help accelerate the energy transition by taking a balanced approach, as Ron was speaking to. Prior to joining UC Merced, she's worked as a process engineer at Q-Cell, a top solar module manufacturer. And in our projects, lots of Q-Cell panels go in all the time. She received her Ph.D. in electrical engineering, working on novel solar cells with near world record efficiency. Thank you, doctor. Thanks for coming. Totally appreciate it. Welcome.
And thank you so much, everyone, and especially you, Sean, for gathering all of us here together. It feels really at home, as like all the minorities and people that has faced with some possibly discrimination in the past. So it's feeling really at home to be here, and thank you again for invitation. Um, so um, so the topics of my presentation is about demand shifting as a profitable strategy for solar plant operators. I'm currently here a postdoc at UC Merced. I'm working under supervision of Professor Sarah Kurtz at the university, and the two co-authors of my talk are Russell Jones and Ron Sinton.
And can you put your slides into full screen?
Uh,
or not? It's okay if that doesn't work.
I mean, it has a recording on that. I tried it, and let's see if it. Yeah, so it started to run the recording. So I should have done something different. But anyway, so I was recording for a virtual conference before this time. But anyway. So.
And also, you're supposed to say hi to Professor Sarah Kurtz.
Oh, hi, Professor Sarah Kurtz.
Well, Martin Volker, I guess, told you to say that. Anyway, continue on.
Okay, yeah. So the topic actually that my presentation is about is that how demand shifting can probably help to the solar plant owners and also the system to make more benefit. And by system here, we mean like literally all the utilities, and which if they can take more benefit, they can, all the individuals and all the customers can save on their electricity bills possibly. So the strategy that we are considering here is that if we shift here in this curve, you see this black line. Specifically, it shows the total load in California. And this green line here is showing the net load. And the net load is basically obtained by subtracting the renewable energy generation, and which is mostly dominant by solar during the day, from the total load. And so you can get this net load. And then if you look at the CAISO market pricing that is available online at every hour or every 5 minutes, you can actually check the prices at that time. And you can also correspondingly for a specific day, you can plot it, and you will see that the price always is following the trend of the net load. So this suggests that if we try to shift some load from the peak of the power to the belly of the thing here, then it would help to possibly change the prices. So as I wrote it down here is that as solar generation is increasing, the daytime net load is decreasing. So as the area of this orange area is increasing, as we are installing more and more solar, so the net load is decreasing, and at some point it even may reach to zero or even negative values. And so as a result of that, so it may reach actually to for the prices that can come very low. And as a result of that, it kills the motivation for any new solar installation if the prices of their electricity are supposed to be so cheap that doesn't maybe fulfill the expenses for the further installation. So that's the main idea is that how the load shifting, or we call it also maybe like electrification currently, as other speakers were talking about, a different time of the day can possibly help to make more benefit for solar plant owner. And so And so by what I would study is that how much solar plant owner would take benefit out of this shift and how much the customers or the whole system as general would take benefit. So here is just a simple overview of my slides, but since my animation is not working, so I need to kind of skip that. But so first, what I did during this study is that I obtained the hourly load generation and also the prices from the Kaiso website, and then I tried to average every season, like every 90 days, average those load curves to come up with a single curve for every season. So in order to be able to compare different seasons, load and prices. And then out of that, I compare the prices specifically with the net load to see are the trends of the price are following the net load all the time or not. And then at next step, I completed the exchange and the expected change to the price as a result of the shifting a specific amount of the load from the peak of the dock to the belly of the dock, and then compare the gain and losses of that. And I also talk a bit about cost and the revenues of the system at the end. So here you can see, maybe as a background, this is how the California electricity market pricing principle and how it's actually working. As you can see in the California electricity market, the supply bids always are stacking from the lowest to the highest, and demand bids are stacking from the highest to the lowest. And because these have different directions, so there is always an intersection between the two, which we call it the total, the market clearing price. And that is what determines actually the electricity price in the market. And when I'm talking here, it's not necessarily the individual like bills, it's more like in the wholesale market. And this is what is showing about that. And then, okay. So here, before going forward, here you can see a preliminary look at the day-ahead prices. And this plot shows that the prices are oscillating very frequently, and some of those oscillations can actually peak to very high values. So these blue curves here are showing the maximum at the top and the minimum prices during each day of the year for 2018 and 2019. Also, my studies here in this is mostly focused on 2019 at first of the slides, and 2020 was most like dealing with COVID, so I ignored that for now. But anyway, and these red lines are showing the median values of the prices at every day and during the year. So some of these oscillation reasons are mostly why the electricity price and the wholesale market is oscillating is because of the gas prices, and some other reason could be like outage in generation plants or some outage in transmission lines or congestion. So yeah, so for this study, I ignore some of the data actually that are very high value and weren't in the majority, similar to other majority data points that I have. Like, so here I just say that above 150, I would ignore that. So here what we can see, so on this figure on the left side, here is the load curve for the California, and for every specific season. This is for summer, and then for fall, for winter, and the blue is for the spring. And of course, what is actually interesting in this figure maybe is that we always have the highest amount of the load in the summer. And so on the bottom of that, I have plotted how much solar generation we have currently in California and how is that as average per season. Again, we have the highest amount of solar in summer, and then it followed by spring and fall, and ultimately the winter. What is interesting in this figure is that if you look at that, the amount of curtailment because of the solar solar generation is actually maximum in the spring, while the solar generation is maximum in the summer. So they are not necessarily, the curtailment is not necessarily following the solar generation. And the reason is that on spring, the amount of the load is much less than the summer. So in summer, although we are making more solar, but we are consuming it more. But in spring, we have less load, so less demand. We may need to curtail some part of that currently. And this is for 2019. And so this curve is actually, if we now subtract this solar generation from the load, we reach to this curve, which actually we call them the dot curve. And as you see, the deepest valley for the dot always happens in the spring. And you can see the corresponding curves for other seasons as well. They all look like maybe ducks with different size of the belly. And then what is interesting, which actually my talk is mostly focused on, is that how prices are following the net load most of the time in the electricity market. And as you see, these trends are following that. So in the next slide, I will more focus on that. But before I move forward, maybe it's also interesting to mention that here in this, the price is always, for electricity, is always higher in winter and not necessarily in summer, while the load is higher in summer. I'm mentioning that because I myself, before, I was thinking, okay, so because we have highest load in the summer, so that's why we should have possibly highest electricity prices in the summer as well. But that's not the case, and the prices are mostly following the trend of like thermal generation currently, which is more expensive typically in the winter.
Just, you're blowing my mind here. I'm loving this, just carefully following, like, whoa, I didn't understand that prices were higher in the winter. That totally surprised me.
Yeah, and yeah, it surprised me as well, to be honest. So here, yeah, and if I'm moving too fast or too slow, you may comment on that, and I can.
No, you're doing a great job. At least I'm following.
Okay, great. So here, as I said in the previous ones, what is the main focus of this talk is that how are the prices following the net load, and how well they are following, and how the trend is similar. So this is what I initially studied for every season to see, yes, and price always follows the net load. So if we again, net load means subtracting the solar from the total load of the California, and then plotting the net load, and then plotting the corresponding prices. And as you see, they are following. So what this figure, then from here, we got this idea that possibly if the net load changed, that for instance, some amount of the load from the peak of this dot curve move to the belly of that, then price should also correspondingly shift. And so if that happened, that it means that the price of electricity drops significantly in the evening, but it increased in the morning. And as a result of that, a solar plant generator can make more money because their electricity become more expensive. So here I'm starting this trend. So now the same, now I'm going to plot them. So this is net load. So I'm plotting now the blue curve versus the red curve in the next slide. So the red curve is the price and the blue curve is the net load. And so if we plot those 24 data points based on versus each other, we got this single data point here that, as you see, the trends are linear, which suggests or confirms the idea that yes, if you shift a specific amount of the load from any amount of shift from any time to another time, you can relate that for a specific change in the dollar per megawatt hours. So as an example, for instance, for spring season in 2019, this curve is suggesting that if I shift 1 gigawatt of load from the maybe 8 p.m. to around 12 p.m. at noon, and then the drops and the price of electricity would change by around $3.86 per megawatt. And similarly for other seasons, but their slope may be different. So the sensitivity of the price to the net load is not necessarily the same in all seasons. And as you can see here, is the highest for winter which also again suggests that although currently all our focus are in summer, but there are maybe some like potentials in future, especially that we may shift our focus more to winter. And so here is the numerical example of a system saving. So I tried here, again, sorry for these animations that are not currently working. But this figure specifically, if you look at that, is like in a schematic manner, says what we are doing. So I chose to shift total of 6 gigawatt for around like 3 hours in the late evening, like let's say 7, 8, 9 p.m. to around like 11, 12, 1 p.m. in the day. So if you see this, this red line is, and the blue line is actually the net load before, and the red line is the net load after the shift. So it's just clear that, okay, so now here we have more shift. And then what happens is that this green line shows the amount of the solar generation before the shift and after the shift. So one thing that this figure shows that now we have a significant amount of the curtailment before, but with this shift, we can potentially sell more solar electricity during the noon. And so you see this gray curve, which was showing the curtailment, is now dropping to almost zero, and then so that value is actually added to solar generation that is already sold to the market. And so because this is trying to fulfill this gap here that we have, so more load, we have more demand, so and we need more supply. And then here, this curve also showing that what happened as a result of that change. And again, you see that the prices are dropped in the evening and increase in the morning, but the amount of the price drop in the evening actually is more significant. And so in this table here on the left is showing a more numerical values to see which generators are taking benefit of this change. So on this table, I just chose maybe a single like at 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. and just shifted like 2 gigawatt hours. As you see, this 22 become 24, and then correspondingly this 26 become 24. So I shifted 2 gigawatt hour and try to see based on the price of the electricity that we have and this sensitivity curves that we calculated out of the change in the price, you see that the price in 12 p.m. and jump up from $10 to $15, but from 8 p.m. the price and jumped down from 56 to 49. So the difference is the same almost in the price, but because this is much more expensive in the winter, so if you now calculate the total generation, the total difference in the price and the total gains, then that would be a significant saving for both the system and also the solar generator. So this is what I have done actually here. And so for just one single hour of the shift, we can see that the system now is saving $152,000 and the solar generator making more like $57,000, while the thermal generator is losing a significant bunch of money. So, and these numbers are also showing that the revenue change and percentage. So here, okay, so again, this is similar to the curve that I just showed you before in the previous slide, but it's showing that the same concept for all the seasons now. And again, by shifting the load from the peak of the duct and to the belly of the duct, or maybe better to say to the hours that we have the maximum solar generation, then we always have, we can sell more solar, and also we can contribute in changing the prices of the wholesale market. And so these 4 figures on the bottom is showing the prices and how they are how the prices changing based on like shifting this example for around 6 gigawatt hour for over 3 hours, like 2 gigawatt hour at like every single hour in this evening to the like the 3 hours at the noon. So that is like the base of the work that I've done. And so based on that sensitivities that I calculated, I come up with these updated prices. And so now if we have these curves, and again, we run all the simulations again that we have for our data, we can recalculate the change in the system. And this figure is showing us how much the system, or all the, maybe better to say all the customers or utilities are saving because of this change in the prices. And as you see that both solar generator owners and system can make revenue. So the system means that they have more savings, so they can probably drop the electricity bills for us. And the solar plant owner are also more encouraged, they can make more benefits. So we can be hopeful that in future, there are more people who are encouraged to install more solar. But as you see that significantly the thermal generators are losing the revenue. The figure on the right, which actually I like it more because it's showing that in perspective, the left one is more absolute, but the right one is more in percentage, that how much the benefit or the revenue increase for specifically for solar generators. For other also generator like nuclear, hydro, wind, it's a bit drop, but it's not very significant. So that's why here in this talk, I focus more on solar.
And your point being like this is a way essentially to get the thermal gas burners out of business. That's how I
Yes,
interpret
and
it.
also make the case for solar, and to do some advocacy more for solar. And also there is a try, I would say, then maybe I come to that in my conclusion, but to see between these two different maybe continent of people who are advocating for more electrification and people who are more like on the utility solar, it seems that there is not a good connection. And so I wanted to highlight here that actually solar, out of that shifting the load or demand, and a solar plant owner can make more benefit. So if we can, and then as a result of that, we possibly can do a stronger advocacy in the policies that we are gonna make in future. Here you can see the implement. So, but this single slide is more shifted toward like how much does it cost for us? I think most of the discussion when electrification comes to my mind, at least, is more on the residential side, and that specifically means that like we have like around 1 gigawatt or 2 gigawatt or at most 3 gigawatts of the load that we can shift on the residential side, and then the revenues out of that can always overcome the cost of for that electrification. So this maybe these lines here, like green lines and purple lines, are showing the cost of the system. And as we try to shift more and more load, currently based on the estimations that is provided actually in a LBNL report recently published, is that the cost gonna be so high, especially when you come toward more like industrial areas, or you go to agriculture, or areas that are not very good like transmission lines, so you cannot necessarily have to access to all the solar at all the hours or such, because of, for instance, congestion or such reasons. So that can affect the amount of the revenue that the system is making. But what it's suggesting is that at least for up to 3 gigawatt, the system and also the solar owners can save money. So it was in a very bigger picture of what is going on. And so as a conclusion, I think I have just 5 more minutes. So is that, so the main thing we wanted to highlight is that load shifting is essential for PV penetration to grow much beyond about 20%. So we basically need to make demand for solar to install more, otherwise we were stuck there. And then the next is that the effect of the price response to shifting load benefits both the system or customers and also the PV plant operators. And so this is again another that I just mentioned, is that we should consider that maybe these benefits are oriented with each other and not necessarily two different categories. And then we have these solar advocates may currently are considering or like a bit hesitant to support the time of use rates because at cases it has been led to drop off the value of the solar. But I'm highlighting here is that the load shifting can actually more motivated them and to support this time of use rates. And so because it may lead to the increase of revenue for them. So they can actually not only maybe sell more electricity now because of the more demand, but they can also sell it with a higher price. So, and then lastly is that the load shifting lead to loss of revenue for thermal plants and make them less economical, which just you mentioned, Sean. And I think, yeah, with that, I'm gonna end my presentation and thank you so much again.
That's fantastic.
Of
You
course.
are smart. Those are fantastic charts, and I really appreciate, as one of the people who struggles on the topic of how to increase solar penetration, I really appreciated you so clearly laying out how load shifting benefits. I mean, just the previous presentation, Ram and I were being a little snarky about using load shifting in heat pump water heaters because getting to low power seems to be and getting them into people's homes is this first goal. But I was wondering, and there's questions here also, uh, vehicles have 60 kilowatt hour batteries or larger, like new cars do. What thoughts do you have on the role of vehicle to grid charging, like where the car absorbs solar energy during the day and discharges it at other times of the day into the grid?
Yeah, I think so. So maybe in a general aspect is that one of the things that would definitely help us to electrify and shift the load from the evening to the morning is that how the EVs can possibly recharge them more during the day and less in the evening but there are like some complexities on that, but I think I did some analysis on that and it was like significant again in changes of the price and the revenue it can make. So currently for EVs maybe it is more suggested that like we should charge them during the night, but my analysis is showing that the EVs should be charged more during the day actually, like earlier, like at noon or before that. And because of this load shifting, that's the time it can provide the highest amount of benefit for us. And so that's maybe one thing that we can think about, that what time of the day is the best time to load them. And in terms of like, yeah, I think I agree is that like the EVs like and with their storage capacities can play a significant role on like how to balance the maybe the demand on our side. And I think one concept that reached to my mind here is like EV sharing and other things, but I haven't really focus currently on like what the applications are and how maybe practical are that. Like I saw in other presenters talk that you're going so into depth of how much it costs and how much is actually possible in near future or not. I was just maybe more here on the theoretical side of that, on the bigger picture, how much it can save money.
Well, I mean, I think what you're showing us is the direction for policymakers. As an example, it makes me think, oh, we should be putting car chargers into commercial spaces. We put so much emphasis in having car chargers become part of the building code of single family residences and
Mhm.
not on code requiring it of parking lots of commercial facilities, where it sounds like you're saying that people should be charging their cars in the morning when they get to work. And
Yes.
instead, we're setting it so people charge their cars before they leave for work and they have no place to charge during the day.
Exactly. So maybe one thing could be that we should maybe for policymakers that how at the people can charge their EVs at a workplace. Yeah. So yeah, as you said.
Well, we have reached the half hour, but there's so many people who have questions for you over in the chat.
Mhm.
Tom Cabot, who did grid purchasing for Palo Alto and is still a real thinker on the topic, helping us all understand how utilities perceive power. He has some insightful comments / questions that I'm hoping you can respond to, as well as Michael Winkler, my partner there, who would like to chat with you. So
Okay.
Would you mind hanging out for a little bit longer and engaging them?
Yeah, as far as I'm not taking, maybe with in person, I can contact with them, but I think it's not scheduled for next present. Yeah.
Oh yes, I'm just saying if you like write in the chat,
Okay. Yeah. Of course.
yeah, just like type it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ashling. That was fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for bringing your big, beautiful
Thank
brain
you
to
again
this.
for your all this effort. I was very excited and honored to participate. Bye-bye.
Absolutely, the honor is mutual.
Mm.
Thank you.